ESEA Season 42 is coming to an end soon with only 2 weeks remaining in the qualifier season. I have listed 26 potential teams that I believe have the possibility to make playoffs this season, and with only 16 spots available, it's going to be a pretty intense matchup. Hello everybody, I'm just Saben from Flyte, and let's get right into the tier list. So I have listed below here all of the potential teams that I think could qualify still. I also have it listed out into 5 different sections. Almost 100%. These teams here, like pretty much they'd have to fumble the bag in a major way to not qualify for playoffs. Next off we have has a good chance or solid chance, which is these people I'd be pretty surprised if they don't make it, but there's still that potential cutoff, you know? Still in the running or still possible are the teams that, you know, they're in an alright spot, but there are only 16 spots, so some of them definitely aren't going to make it. I think that out of those remaining spots that aren't in the top 2 tier list, though, these are the most likely people to fill in the rest of those spots. The next one we have is has to grind. These are teams kind of really not in a great spot. They have to fill in the gap now so that they can qualify. These aren't teams that need a perfect run necessarily, but they're in for the long haul if they want to make it to playoffs. And then finally, we have honorable mentions, which are a few teams that would pretty much have to have perfect runs to qualify, which isn't impossible. It's just not super possible. To get the honorable mentions out of the way, I think that that's just the best way to start this. We have a few honorable mentions. Vireo Pro, RE Esports, Golden State Warriors, and Michigan Tech Huskies. These teams, honestly, they're all good teams in my opinion. They've all had R8 seasons back and forth, but they're kind of all just in really rough spots. RE Esports I could see being easily 5-5 with the matches they have. Golden State Warriors have only played. They just had their 6th match actually tonight, and they won, so congratulations to them. But they're 3-3. Least matches played pretty much in the entire league so far. I think they could definitely win a lot of their matches though. And that's why I have them in this honorable mention section, because I mean shit, if they didn't have so many matches they still need to play that I don't have much to go off of, I would have them in a has to grind. Then Vireo Pro and Michigan Tech Huskies, they're both 4-4. If they keep winning their matches and a few other teams mess up, I think we could potentially see them. It's just not super likely. But I wanted to give these 4 teams a shout out because they had a pretty good season overall, and even though I don't think they're going to qualify necessarily, it's nice to mention these other teams. Alright, now let's just get the almost 100% major bag fumbles that they don't make it out of the way. And there are going to be 6 teams in this tier. Infinity Esports, Take Flyte, No Bias, Team DNA, Mad Kings, Arrows, and X13. Keep in mind that some of these, I'll try to get it in an order of somewhere, but in the almost 100%, this is no order. These teams are all, like I said, like it'd be a major bag fumble if these teams don't end up making it. All these teams are at the very least 6-1 right now. 3 of them are 6-1, 3 of them are 7-1. A few of the things that I mentioned, I guess, Flyte is not only going to be playing Infinity Esports, but also Eris in Week 5, which could potentially see a little downturn on them. But again, I mean, Take Flyte could lose every single match. They'd be 7-4, 7-5 when the season ends, and I think they'd still qualify off of that. So I don't think that there's any way these teams don't make it. Infinity Esports also has a pretty rough Week 5 playing Take Flyte and X13. X13's got a mixed match of Infinity Esports and Red Wolves, which could both go either way. Mad Kings are going to be playing Team DNA and Eternal, which I think will both go in their favor, but again are kind of toss-ups since they're both also respectively good squads. And then Team DNA is going to be playing Mad Kings, otherwise some lower teams, so I really see them potentially having a strong week for sure. Now we're going into the solid chance tier. These teams, I think I would be surprised if I don't see them in playoffs, because they have been doing really well. If they don't make it to playoffs, I think they've had really good seasons. I think that's tragic if they don't. And this is also going to be 6 teams. We're going to be seeing Eclectic, Touchpoint, Rain, FPL and Ellison, the Louisville Red Wolves, and finally, Limitless. Now, Solid Chance is actually the first tier where I'm not doing it straight up in the standard power rankings. I'm featuring Limitless a little early in here. And personally, I see them in a really good spot. I'm bullish on Limitless, dare I say it. They almost beat Infinity. They beat Vireo Pro, they beat and slaughtered early on in the season. They play Shift, they played Red Wolves, and they've also got to play Mad Kings. Some off and on matches for sure, but I think Limitless are in a pretty good spot. Then we've got other teams, Eclectic. They're going to be playing X13 in Rain. Sure, pretty rough spot, but sitting at 6-2, I'm definitely feeling like they're still in it to win it. Just because Eclectic's playing two other higher ranked teams, I'm not too worried because pretty much every single one of their series have been competitive. Even their losses have been super close. So I think that they're going to keep all of their series competitive. They've been super consistent throughout the season, and I'm excited to see how their matches go because I think it'll give X13 a little run for their money in the top bracket. We're going to be seeing Touchpoint playing Red Wolves as well as Eros in week 5. Which could bring a little shakiness to Touchpoint, but kind of like Eclectic, they've had a killer season so far. And I think before I beat a dead horse by saying the same thing, all of the teams in here have been having a really good season, and the reason I have them under the solid chance is because I believe they have a decent chance at winning some of their next matches. Red Wolves for sure is definitely in one of the rougher spots because even though they're 5-1, which is a really good score, they're 10th. They got a lot of intense matches coming up. Not only are they playing Limitless, but they're playing Touchpoint and X13. Which, I mean, we could see Red Wolves at 8-1. We could also see them at 5-4 very shortly. I'm feeling a little optimistic for them, but I don't know, man. They the seeding right now is not in their favor. That's for damn sure. And then finally, FPL and Ellison, just to mention them. They've got some pretty alright matches coming up. They've got Orion and Numa, who unfortunately I think is about to get farmed. I would be extremely surprised if they don't kill it in their next few matches and make it to at least a decent seeding in playoffs. Now, we are going to be getting a little dicier here, a little hot takey. We're going to be going over our still possible tier. This one, we're going to be starting off with the one and only Snake's Den. Snake's Den, they're 5-2. They had a bit of a rough start to the season, but they have had one hell of a turnaround. Snake's Den are on the cusp of playoffs right now. They have confirmed their 14th spot, which you only need to be 16th, and I would say that they're probably going to stay right around that spot. And they've got some really winnable matches coming up. I don't know, man, Snake's Den, and they have had one hell of a turnaround, and I'm super excited to see how they play. Next team coming in is Orion, the first team I have kind of sifted out of the standard power rankings. The only reason I'm iffy on Orion is because they have literally not played any teams that even crack qualifying top 20 right now, except Mad Kings, which they lost. This isn't me calling Orion bad. They're currently seeded 12th, and I would kind of be surprised if they don't make it because their up-and-coming matches are also not super intense. They're going up against Yenny Cherry, who is low-key just been on a spree of getting the hardest teams over and over again. And they also have FPL and Ellison. So I feel like they'll beat Yenny Cherry. They'll probably take an L to FPL and Ellison if I'm correct with my predictions, which who knows about that. Which means they should be at the very least seeing themselves at 6-3, and that's not a bad spot at all. That's above tons of teams, and they're playing pretty good. I just feel like I haven't seen them play against enough top tier teams yet to know how they're going to compete against FPL and Ellison per se, or when they make it to playoffs, as I assume they will, how they're going to be doing against all these teams, seeing is that they've played literally one of them, moving into playing two of them by playoffs. Next, we have New Threat. New Threat is now 5-3. Their upcoming matches are against All Gas No Breaks and Peeker's Advantage. They should win both of those matches. I'm seeing New Threat being 7-3 at the end of week 5, and I mean, I think they'll probably qualify from that, right? Honestly, New Threat, they've had a really solid season so far. Looking at most of their match scores, they've been close. The teams kept it pretty consistent, honestly. And if they don't make playoffs, I'd be a little disappointed just because looking at their scores, looking at the matches, they've been playing pretty good overall this season. They've just had a few rough matches, as most teams end up having, right? I have an interesting next one under our still possible, and that is Team Esoteric. Now, Team Esoteric's kind of in an interesting spot. They're 4-3. They've been keeping it competitive. They've been getting really close to beating these top tier teams. I think Team Esoteric, they're out to fight in them. They have some winnable series coming up. I think that we could see them sneak into the 16th or the 15th spot, maybe even 14th. Currently, Team Esoteric is ranking 18th, and that's right on that cusp. Now, there are 6 teams left, and there's only one more team that's fitting under my still possible. And this might be a little bit of a surprise, but it's going to be LAG Gaming. LAG Gaming have risen from the ashes of kind of just like getting dumpstered on to just like shitting on everybody. They were a team that I literally wasn't looking out for at all. They were in like 32nd most of the season, as far as I recall. I believe they were 26th for a hot minute as well. And then all of a sudden, they're 16th now. Technically at the playoffs cutout. Technically at a pretty good score. The same score as New Threat, right? I mean, it shocked me in the best way possible. Not only is LAG Gaming at a 5-3 score, a pretty good score, but they play Yenny Cherry, who I mentioned is kind of just at the short end of the stick of their matches right now, and the Forest, who I'm very iffy on at the moment. I think that we could see them at 7-3, and if they're at 7-3, they're above Team Esoteric, they're potentially above Orion, hell, they might even be above Snakestat. So I think LAG Gaming, don't count yourselves out, you are in this shit, and I think you might be in it to win it. Now, we have to get to the last section. That has to grind section. There are 5 teams that fit this section, and I'm going to put them in as much of an order as I can that I think is right. We got Eternal, Villainous HQ, Team Valence, The Forest, and then In Control. Hey there, post-production Saben here. I just wanted to say that it looks like In Control actually ended up losing a match that I didn't notice, so they're at a different score than I thought. So they're more of an honorable mention now. Next, we have the Forest. I don't want to be harsh on the Forest, but 2 of their 4 wins are forfeit wins. So if you take those away, they're 2-3. It's not that they're bad. It's not that their wins haven't been good. It's not that their losses haven't been close. It's just like, I don't know, man. I can't put a lot of faith in a team that currently wouldn't be positive without forfeits, and I feel like that's fair. I would love for them to prove me wrong. I mean, look at their logo. It's just bussin'. Next, we have Team Valence. Team Valence have kind of been on a losing streak recently, and I feel like they're just on a downward spiral. Yeah, they're going to be playing Kari Esports and Numa, both teams that arguably aren't in the greatest spots. I have Kari Esports under honorable mentions, and Numa, I've like only said that they're going to lose so far, so like it's winnable. But I don't know. They seem like they're in a stump. It feels like if there's a matchup that Kari could win to potentially bring themselves back in, Team Valence is definitely one of those ones that they're going to need to win. I don't know, man. I just don't know if Team Valence is in the spot to really close the gap. Then we have Villainous HQ. Villainous HQ, or Villainous Union, has been in an interesting spot. They've been playing a lot of lower ranked teams. They're 4-3 right now. Their next matchups I think are super winnable. They're going to be playing Shift and Peaker's Advantage, which would bring them to 6-3, and I mean, then they're right up here, right? They're tied with the majority of the teams in this list. Villainous Union, they've just been having a rough season, and I know they're a good team, and I'm optimistic that they'll win their next 2 matches. Honestly, I think that they could still qualify. It's just, are they too far down? And I think it will come down to, for them specifically, where these other teams, how much these ones with the lower scores end up placing versus each other. Then finally we have Eternal, which is the highest ranked town here by a little bit. Eternal is 4-2, and the only reason I have them down here is because they are in a gauntlet of fucketry. They're going to be facing not only Team DNA, which is here by the way, not only Rain, it's here by the way, but also Mad Kings, which is here by the way. It just seems like Eternal is not getting good luck on their bracket. Alright everybody, I tried to straighten it out a bit, so my final tier list, take it with a grain of salt. In the almost 100% or the top tier, the tippy top, I have Infinity Esports, Eros, Take Flyte, X13, Team DNA, and Mad Kings Esports. For the teams that I think have a solid chance, and I'd be like pretty surprised if they didn't make it, are going to be Eclectic, Touchpoint, FPL and Ellison, Rain, Louisville Red Wolves, and Limitless. For the teams that I think are still possible and definitely in the running, I have Snake's Den, LAG Gaming, New Threat, Orion, and Team Esoteric. Then under the Has to Grind, teams that it really depends not only on how they play, but on how a few other teams end up placing as well. I have Villainous Union, Team Valence, Eternal, Team Forest, and then finally under my respectable honorable mentions for teams that have been playing pretty well, I think, we have Golden State Warriors, Michigan Tech Huskies, Virio Pro, Kari Esports, and In Control. Thank you so much everybody for your time. I really do appreciate it. Let me know down in the comments who you think are going to end up qualifying, if you think some people on my list were off, and who you think is going to win playoffs overall. I'll catch you in week 5. Peace.